So anyway, talking about the less fortunate who are about to take the plunge and go into college life and are thinking about it, we have Hafeez Lakhani. He's the CEO of Lakhani Coaching, and of course, a friend of bold. How you doing?
Really nice to see you again.
Hey, good to have you back. Look, a lot of schools are waiving the SAT and ACT requirements this academic year. Will standardized testing become a thing of the past?
It's a great question. I don't expect it to become a thing of the total past, but I do expect the test optional movement to pick up a lot of momentum post-COVID. One thing people need to remember is that test optional is not new. It's been around for, in some cases, 30 years, places like Bowdoin College, really great universities. And University of Chicago is the one really shining example of a really top-tier equivalent to Ivy League prestigious university that has been very successful with test optional. That being said, what some people don't know is that if you guys want to guess, what percentage of students do you think still submit testing to universities that are test optional?
91%.
Very high, like above 80%, I would say.
You guys are close, 77%. And this was published, it's been widely published in something called the Defining Access Report that did an in-depth study over 10 years of data from universities that were test optional. I believe it was over 1,000 universities were recorded in this study, a really comprehensive study. And two really important takeaways from that study are the 77% number. And to me, because I work with students on selective admissions, it's important to note, again, do you guys want to guess? Were students who did submit testing accepted at a higher rate, or were students who didn't submit testing accepted at a higher rate?
I imagine the students who submitted testing were accepted at a higher rate.
Acceptance rates were higher in that report for students who did submit testing. So I think it's the perfect option. It's good for society in that let a student decide if his or her testing furthers the application. If your problem-solving ability is an asset and you want it to be considered, great, go ahead and show that excellence and be aware of where the bar is for a given university. And if you think that's not the best way to show your excellence, then take it off the table. In many of these cases, it's almost completely widely accepted now to be test optional for this academic year because of coronavirus, right? And if you take it off the table, be aware that there will be all the more focus on your academics and what I call your character.
So Hafeez, you help students really shop around for colleges. And one of the new considerations that we have now, right, is that some schools aren't financially stable. Is that part of the process now, if you're someone who's looking at colleges, about the long-term financial sustainability of these institutions?
Sure, it's a valid question. And frankly, we live in a world of the haves and have-nots in many ways, and that applies to colleges as well. So the really kind of large, prestigious colleges, like let's say the Brown Universities of the world, the Harvards of the world, as I said, Chicago's of the world, they have big endowments. And the endowments, even though there's a lot of restrictions on what they can use from the endowment on a given year, it is kind of there as a rainy day fund. So if in a year like this, the financial numbers on colleges are horrendous. I've already spoken to CNBC about this. I expect at least 100 colleges not to make it out of this period.
Wow.
And the reason is, if you think about it on the revenue side, let's suppose you're a college that doesn't have a huge endowment and you depend on tuition revenue. So you've announced that your class is going to be completely virtual. Well, guess what? 25%, 30% of students are going to say, hey, I'm taking the year off. I'm going to find other things to do with my time. I'm going to go participate in the election year and do other productive things, and I'll come back next year. Well, that's fine for the students, but the school loses that revenue and they don't really have a way to replace it, right? And yet their overhead, their buildings, their staff, obviously professors, all those costs remain roughly the same, right? So you lose enrollment revenue. International students, not enough people are talking about this, but with all politics aside, the current policies in place, you may have read about the big ICE announcement about a month ago, are basically putting out an unwelcome mat for international students. So for ongoing international students, it's a little bit easier, but for entering international students, first-year undergrads and first-year graduate students, it is a massive obstacle to enroll. And so what some of those people are going to do is say, you know what, I'll stay in Lebanon, I'll stay in China, I'll stay in South Korea, and I don't want to go to the US anymore. And those are tuition dollars that are not showing up at these universities as well. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a rainy day fund, how are you going to plug these financial holes?
Yeah, we're keenly aware of that. And one last thing I do want to ask you, for our viewers like myself who have already left school many years ago, not that long ago, but have already graduated, is this a prime time for these, let's say, non-traditional students to take some classes?
Sure. So let's talk about, you guys were making some really good points, even with the jokes about online education. It's interesting. Online education has never been better than it is now. I know it's a huge inconvenience for a lot of people, and I'll be honest with you, it's not, even though it's never been better, it's still not anywhere near in-person education, right? And I'm not sure it'll officially converge all the way. But that being said, if there are tuition discounts available, and if you've been thinking about, taking some classes or chipping away at a degree, you can rest assured that online education is, in many cases, far, far less expensive than in-person education. Many universities, including a lot of the state universities, they offer online-only degrees that are a fraction, less than half of the cost of a full-time degree or an in-person degree. It's a good opportunity because those courses are getting better and better. The professors are getting more and more experience at delivering a good product online, even if it's not quite what it would be if you were in the peer environment, learning from the brilliance of the people around you.
Well, Hafeez, we always love having you on. So thanks for being a friend of Bold TV, and we'll see you soon.
Great to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, see, once students, they graduate college,